On today's episode, it's yours truly. Did you know that I started out in real estate with $70,000 in credit card debt and a credit score that was a little less than 600? So actually a lot less than 600. Find out how I improved it and what I'm doing now to fix my finances. Welcome to the Mark Pattison Show. I went from being a solo agent to selling over $1 billion in real estate in just 6 years. I flip houses, I run a portfolio of investment properties, and I help people like you create lifestyles they couldn't even imagine living. I'm going to show you how to make riches through real estate. Welcome to the Mark Pattison Show. Welcome to the show. Finances, a little bit vulnerable, a little bit of a topic that people kind of avoid. And I think the reason is, I don't know why America is so obsessed with money and then not talking about it with their families. It's kind of an odd, weird thing. But my parents never talked to me about money. We didn't talk about savings. We didn't talk about credit score. We didn't talk about, investments and bonds and crypto, like something I don't know almost little to nothing about. I mean, I know enough, but I'm not going to tell you how to do it. So let's talk about it. One thing I would say is that the most important thing you can focus on with finances is your credit score. When I moved to San Diego, I was new here. I did not have a friend. I didn't know one person in town. I had a moped for a car, and I decided to get my real estate license. I had $70,000 in debt. It was, poor choices, just doing stupid things, but also a lot of traveling, which is fantastic. And so anytime anyone said, hey, you want to go to Africa or you want to do this? I said, sure, let's go. And I would just charge it on the credit card. My credit score, therefore, because I had a ton of revolving debt, it was in the low 500s. Proudly, now I can say I have above an 800 score, and we'll talk about that and how I get there a little bit later today. But credit is your main focus. So get your credit score up. Let's give you a couple tips on how you can make that happen. So say that you have a credit limit for $1,000. Did you know that the bank actually looks at it as a penalty to you if you charge more than 30% on that credit card, even if you're going to pay it off? So say you have a $1,000 limit, keep your charging up to $300, keeping it simple, and you want to pay that off at the end of the month, so you're not going to have that revolving bill. Another thing is, I know a lot of people will pay off a credit card and they're super excited and they close that account out. Don't do that as well, because you're going to want to make sure that you have credit history. If it's a long ongoing credit card that you've had for quite some time, save that credit card, because what will happen is your credit history will actually improve, which also improves your credit in a positive way. So pay off the cards. The cards that you don't use as much, totally fine. You keep them open. Have something that's a small minimal charge that you can keep on there. So that way you're not messing up. Basically, you're not ignoring that credit card and the bank knows that you're still using it. So maybe put something on there like Netflix or Hulu or something that's a recurring charge, and then remember to actually pay that bill. Because if you got something on there and you forget about it and it's like an $8 charge that's automatic every month, and sure enough, it goes to collections or you're not paying and it screws up your credit because of one simple mistake, the way that we evolve and made that doesn't happen again is that you're going to put it on your calendar and you're going to check every single month to make sure those auto pays are on, that you're not messing up with anything, and that you're looking at every single bill. So if you look at my calendar, I have it on Google. Early in the morning, I just put on there a little note, like a little task, check your Visa bill every single month. And it's like, check your Citibank, check your American Express, making sure that everything is paid each and every month. So to recap a little bit, just real quick on how to improve your credit, don't charge more than 30%, because that will impact your credit in a negative way. Don't close any credit cards after you pay them off. Yes, it's amazing. You don't want to use that credit card anymore, but it will impact your credit history. And then lastly, if you are going to be doing this, make sure you have a small minimal charge going each and every month and put it on your calendar so you don't forget, because nothing worse than forgetting for like a minimal charge and then screwing your credit up. It's impressive what can happen when your credit changes. So focus on that first. If you're new to finance, make sure that happens. Another thing I always talk about is reserves. How many months reserves should you have if you need a rainy day syndrome, whatever happens? We got to figure that out. So my personal reserve account is 6 months. Now, I don't have everything liquid, meaning, it's in my checking or in my savings available to pull out. I consider my stock accounts to be somewhat of my reserve. So I'll have 2 months liquid that cover all my bills. And then I'll have 4 months at least in my stock accounts that I can cash out. Anytime you go to cash out stocks, it takes about 3-4 days for that money to hit your account. So it's ultimately liquid. If you have something like real estate or something else, you got to put it on the market, sell it. 60 days later, you hopefully get a check. That's not as much of a liquid asset. So I would say focus on having 6 months reserves. 2 of them can just be in any general account, and then 4 of them, 4 months of the reserves into stocks or whatever you want to invest in that you can get and have it liquid within 3 to 4 days. The way that you find out your reserves, simple. Add up all your bills, track everything, and then you can do an Excel sheet and then just multiply that number by 2. If it's an unusual month or if your kid's in baseball camp or whatever, you got to add reserves for those extra little ancillary businesses or ancillary charges, I mean. So you're going to want to make sure that you go in there and make, if you have your property tax bill due in April, have that on your Excel sheet so you know, like, hey, it's going to be a bigger bill that month. Or if you have, maybe you have to get a new roof on your house and it's $10,000, but you don't have to get it for 2 years. Well, on your little Excel sheet further down, put on there 2024, new roof, $10,000, because it's coming. It allows you to save and put money away for that. The way that I've been able to do this, contributing to my SEP IRA, being a self-employed person, I know that in April 15th, I have to put in $56,000. So instead of it being like an oh crap moment where I have to maybe sell some stocks or throw some money at it to put in $56,000 for my maximum that I can contribute for the year, I have it on my calendar. I'm prepped for it. I know it's coming. So just make sure you plan things out. What I do is I actually use a Google Sheet. I put all my expenses on there and what the amount is and the total, and I'll put my checking account, how much I have in there, and I'll basically do a formula and say, hey, how many months reserves do I have? Because if you just do, say you have $10,000 in your checking account and say your monthly expenses are $5,000, well, simple math obviously there, but you have two months reserves. You got to have groceries, gas, any information, your utilities bills, everything on there. And I would always round up. If you think that you spend $300 on your utility bill, if you live somewhere smaller, that's going to, or like maybe cold weather and it's hotter in the summer, colder in the winter, check those bills and make an average throughout so that you make sure you have enough cash. This right here will make it so much easier, especially if you have a job where your pay is not consistent. It allows you to have those reserves so then you're not stressed for payments. Problem is, a lot of us live outside of our means. So let's talk about that. Difference between need versus want when it comes to finances. If you don't have 6 months reserves, you don't need that Louis Vuitton bag. You don't need that new car. You don't need whatever you're going through, because truly, you don't need even something simple like a new beanie or a new tank top. You don't need those items. You want them and it feels good to buy them. But if you don't have 6 months reserves, or if you even have credit card debt, you are going so much more in the hole than you even realize, because that $24 tank top now just cost you what, $1,000 because you're sitting there just charging it on credit cards, which you have an interest rate of probably 14 to 20 something percent. So focus on that first. So if you have any credit card debt, eliminate it. Then focus on getting 2 months reserves, then 3 months, then 4 months, then 5 months, and hit that 6 month mark. Honestly, if you hit that 6 month mark, freaking shoot me a DM and tell me how it's improved, because you got your credit cards paid off. You got the necessary amount reserves. That's amazing. Like, that's what I think is the most amazing thing you could possibly do. Once you hit that mark, that's when you go looking at a house. You got 2 years of job history. You can go buy your first place, 3.5% down with an FHA loan. And that's how you start building equity and getting out of the hole. And it just becomes a life where then all of a sudden you're buying your first investment property, and then you have passive income, and then you're just cooking along. And all it started with was not buying that stupid tank top that you didn't need in the first place. So it all sounds simple, but putting it in paper and put it in front of you up in visual, putting those goals out, what you want saved, what your reserves are going to be, whatever that is, you need to have that down. And you got to remember, it's going to take longer than you think. It takes a while to get out of the hole, but once you're out, oh my gosh, it's exponential of how much money just compounds. I mean, if you just look at it and you can figure how you can invest and focus on those things, trust me. So if you're starting out, pay off those credit cards, save 6 months reserves, buy a house. It's truly that simple. Stop buying stupid shit that you don't need. And that way you can get financial freedom. It's really that easy. If you're living outside of your means, or if you're living in an area that's, you don't need that 2-bedroom apartment. Yeah, it's nice to have a freaking office, but you know what? It's just not in the cards right now. If you don't have reserves saved up, you shouldn't be having expensive a place. You got to live where you're supposed to be living. If you want to rent or if you want to buy, look at it where it's like, what can you actually afford, and what can you come back and do more with your money and save more? Now, with the thing of why I only have 2 months reserves in my accounts, having 6 months reserves in an account where you're only getting a very, very, very small return on your money, your savings account returns less than I don't even know, less than 1/10%. I don't even look at the numbers because it's not worth it. Go and take that money and make that money work for you somewhere else. Great website to check out, motleyfool.com. They're going to be the membership. It's about $100, I think, a year, and it'll tell you which stocks to buy. Now, if you're buying those stocks, they are a long-term hold, meaning 3 to 5 years. If you're selling stocks because you need money, because you don't have your reserves set up, you're going to be selling and you're going to be paying capital gains on any gain that you have if you sell it before the 12-month mark. Now, capital gains tax, you're going to have to pay that. And if you're selling it, if you wait for past the 12 months, like the recommendation is with Motley Fool, you do have a capital gains tax, but it's a long-term capital gains tax and it's less. So focus on having money put away that you don't need, and then set it aside. It's kind of like a piggy bank or a crock pot. I always say set it and forget it, but you can access it for that rainy fund if you need it. Cool thing is I just had a large tax bill due, and I didn't have to dip into my stock accounts. But if I needed to, because it was kind of an oh shit moment, if I needed to, it was there. But I didn't want to. I wanted to make it happen without doing that. So I went after and looked at what I could get, see what was coming in the next month, buckled down, and I got it paid. I should have had that prepped a little bit earlier. We're all human. We get excited about things. We get new projects going. I bought my new building, and you just start spending and you don't realize where it's going, because I was kind of getting out of hand without tracking, but I knew I had to get these things in place to make this happen. So everyone does it. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I don't know exactly everything about finances, but these little simple steps with credit score and your banking and reserves, and then saving up to buy your first place or maybe your investment property. If you want to chat investments or if you want to chat real estate, shoot me a DM. My information, Mark Pattison Show on Instagram. We can chat and I can show you what's the best place to buy. It may be San Diego, it may be Texas, it may be Florida, it might be Colorado. There's a lot of different places with great markets. And it depends whether you want equity gain or if you want a cash flow gain. If you don't need money cash flow now, if you're younger, a lot of the thing that you can practice on is like getting equity over long term. If you're older and you want to have cash flow so you don't have to work or do anything, and you want a property manager in Tennessee, and your property may not go up a ton in value, but you then get a return, every single month that's positive over your mortgage, which is cash flow, then that's money that you can live off of. Cool thing about what I love real estate and investing for long term, rents go up with the economy. So if your life gets more expensive, more than likely rents are going up as well. So it can reflect what's going to happen in the economy. And you can go and say, hey, and when the economy does kind of take a little bit of a downturn, rents aren't hurt that much. People are always scared of being a landlord or whatever. There's property managers there for you. I'm not saying you can completely rely on just having a tenant, pay every single month. But if you have quite a few properties, say you have 10 of them after you built this all out, you buy your first one, you buy your second one, you got 10 doors and you're sitting back collecting rent checks. Say you got one bad tenant, well, the property manager takes care of it for you, and that's handled. So you're only collecting 9 months of rent or 9 units of rent, but you still got those 9 units. So it's diversifying through different tenants and through different properties. We've all played Monopoly. You buy 4, you sell them, you buy a new hotel. That's essentially what you're going to be doing. Buy a few properties, 1031 them all together, buy something bigger. Do it again and again and again, and then pretty soon you're just sitting back pretty. I remember in high school, this is how I started out in real estate, is I was maybe 16 years old studying for biology, and I walked into this girl's house and I said, holy crap, what do your parents do for a living? And she's like, well, my dad's a fireman. I was like, what does your mom do? She's like, she's a stay-at-home mom. And mind you, this house was on the ocean, had an indoor basketball court, had an indoor trampoline room. And I said, how the heck, what did your grandparents do? Because obviously they inherited some money. And he goes, no. My dad started buying real estate at age 18. And every year he's been buying one property. Well, her dad was like 50 years old. So he had like 32 properties and was living on the ocean in Seattle. So real estate is freaking amazing. Trust me, that's where you're going to want to go. But it starts with your credit score. So start there. Hope you learned something, and welcome to the Mark Pattison Show. Tune in soon, and I'll chat with you later. Thank you for tuning into the Mark Pattison Show today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please download so you can refer back. If you like this content and want to continue receiving real estate education for free, head over to your computer, scroll all the way down to the section after the episodes on the podcast, and select the 5 stars. If you're willing to commit to transforming your business, please visit my website, markpattisonrealestate.com. We've created a community of real estate professionals where we give back and share tips on how to succeed. Visit markpattisonrealestate.com. And remember, if you're not fucking up, then you're not trying.